The Rise and Shine podcast series is made possible by the generous support of Bonnie Vozar of Chicago, Illinois.
Jews are no strangers to times of crisis. It's part of our narrative. And as Jews in the diaspora, we are once again in challenging times. There will be a time for everything under the sun, a time to mourn and a time to dance. But dance we will.
This is Rise and Shine, a podcast that offers timeless wisdom and uplifting meditations to fill your heart, feed your soul, and start your day on a positive note. Here is Adrienne Gold-Davis.
On September 8th, 1991, my water broke during an episode of Saturday Night Live. I honestly thought I had peed myself laughing. As any pregnant woman can attest to, this is not so unusual. But alas, that was not what happened. But no contractions came. So when we called the hospital, they told us, wait till they're 10 minutes apart and then come in. Well, we both fell asleep, my husband and I, and we woke up in the morning, but still no labor pains. The hospital said we had to come in right away, so we did. But the maternity ward seemed eerily empty of doctors. My team of OBs were conspicuously absent that day, and by the time I delivered my firstborn child late the next night, it was a stranger who delivered us, and I was plenty annoyed. Where was my team? It was only then that someone told me it was Rosh Hashanah. Imagine that. I did not realize it. That is how far removed I was from our rich traditions and our history. Now, fast forward 33 years, and I'm speaking to you right now about the power of your Jewish identity. Me who didn't even know it was Rosh Hashanah. And my message to you in telling you this is this. It is never too late to take hold of your birthright, your Jewish soul, and its particular metaphysical properties, and to become imbued with it, to make it your primary identity, to use it as the set of spectacles you peer through in the world, to learn and grow from its meaning. But how does one frame one's Jewish identity with joy and pride and not with fear and dread? Post October 7th, 2023, many Jews have been forced to confront their identities in a way that they had not needed to before. And if that's you, well, welcome home, my friends. But let's make sure that we frame our identities in a way that is positive and sustainable. I mean, to be sure, anti-Semitism and anti-Semitic attacks are up 400%. We have faced anti-Israel protests, social media slurs, student encampments agitating against us, and we have watched anti-Semitism hide behind the concept of anti-Zionism. We've seen our enemies hijack our narrative and manipulate the uninformed. But in our rich tradition, in the books and movies and the stories we tell about being Jews, we see, in fact, that there are several kinds of narratives. Ascending narratives, which are like going from rags to riches, from bad to great. And then descending narratives. Well, I had it all and then I lost it all. Up to down, or the proper way of resiliency, which is called an oscillating narrative. There are high points and there's low points, but we stay together through it all, and there will be another high. You see, this is the genesis of hope. This is the entranceway to true resilience, because a crisis will put a crack in our narrative, but with intention, we can put it back together. You know about kintsugi, right? It's the Japanese art of golden joinery, where broken pottery is repaired, not to obscure or hide the cracks, but instead to enhance them. They would do this with thick lashings of glue that was filled with 24-karat powdered gold. And people came to love this aesthetic so much that the repaired bowls were consistently considered exponentially more valuable than before they were broken. You know what? We Jews are kintsugi. If you are a Jewish woman by birth or by choice, or you are an ally, then you should know that we are descended from warrior stock. You are a daughter of Sarah and Rebecca and Rachel and Leah and Queen Esther and so many more. You know, I personally wear something each day to remind me of this. I have this necklace. It is silver and gold, and it's a timbrel, a tambourine. Let me explain what it represents to me. You see, according to Jewish tradition, it was only due to the actions of righteous Jewish women that we even merited to leave slavery in Egypt. We also learn that it will be in the merit of righteous Jewish women that the world will be redeemed. This was the reason Momentum was started. It was the recognition that if you could inspire a mother, you could impact her entire family. And if you impacted enough families, you could change whole communities. And if you change enough communities, you can change the world. But back to the tambourine. Miriam, the prophetess and the sister of Moses and Aaron, led the women out of slavery in Egypt. We left with unleavened bread because there was just no time to let the dough rise. Until this day, on Passover, we relive that rushed exit from Egypt by eating matzah. After the Egyptians chased us to try and get their slave nation back, after being stuck at the Sea of Reeds with the army coming up behind us, after the sea finally splits for us and allows us to cross, and we're safely on the other side, Miriam and the women take out their tambourines and begin to sing and make music to God. Now, of course, there's an obvious question here. Why did they pack these instruments? Is that what you would bring if you were leaving slavery in a hurry? Oh, I think I'll bring my unleavened dough and a musical instrument. Well, yes, they did. Because us women know that something great comes or can come from pain. You know, the Jewish day starts at night, then the confusion and darkness give birth to dawn. We can be 10 centimeters and dilated, and the pain level is unspeakable, but it is also the moment before birth occurs. And Miriam knew we would be redeemed, and she prepared for it, because women prepare for dawn. So, it seems no surprise that the famous hashtag to memorialize the Nova Festival massacre reads, "We will dance again." In the oscillating narrative that comprises Jewish history, there will be a time for everything under the sun, a time to mourn and a time to dance. But dance we will. We are indigenous to the land of Israel. We have maintained spiritual and physical ties to that land. From Pittsburgh to Paris, we have been saying next year in Jerusalem at the end of all of our Seders. And as Zionists, we believe that while there are many ways to express Zionism, be they political or cultural or religious, that Zionism is just a movement of self-determination, that the Jewish people have a right to exist in a sovereign state in the land of Israel. And yet, the word Zionist is now used as a slur, as a defamation of character. We must reclaim that word with joy. Judaism demands joy. You know, we read in the verse in Psalms, this line, Ivdu et Hashem b'simcha. We should serve God with joy, because joy makes us thrive. Joy together makes us stronger. So how do we feel joy right now? How do we reclaim our joyous, oscillating narrative? Psychologists say that it's important to raise your children to know they are part of something bigger than themselves, that teaching them this gives our children perspective and resilience and joy when we know that pain is nothing new, that we've been here before, and that we will put ourselves back together with those thick lashings of golden joinery. Then we don't need to live in fear. Our identities become less oi and more joy. You know, Rabbi Shimshon Raphael Hirsch taught that the word sameach, happy, is closely related to the word someach, growing. We will grow more and grow stronger with joy. Be proud of who you are. When you strengthen your family's Jewish identity, you can face difficulties, including difficult times for our people, proactively. You know, it says in our texts that a person should always be flexible like a reed and not rigid like a cedar. When we're afraid, we seize up mentally and physically. We become rigid and easily broken. I think I told you this before, but many years ago, there was a summer storm in Toronto where I live, this huge storm, and 100-year-old cedar tree came down in my yard, crashed through the fence, and left destruction in its wake. And yet, the beautiful columbine flowers I had planted, with their thread-thin, flexible stems and their delicate, flowering heads, well, they made it through unscathed. They were flexible like a reed. They weathered the storm. This week, let's take a look at how we frame our Jewish narrative. Can you see beyond the tragedies that have befallen our people and focus on the extraordinary accomplishments and impacts that Jewish thought and behavior has brought to the world? Can you find your place in the over 3,500-year-old story and hold up your generation with pride and resilience? Because it's never too late to uncover and celebrate who you are. You might find that you give birth to a self you never expected, and it can be your own personal Rosh Hashanah too.
Thanks for listening to Rise and Shine. Don't forget to rate, review, and subscribe to Momentum Podcasts on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. Join Adrienne again next time for more timeless wisdom and uplifting meditations that fill your heart, feed your soul, and start your day on a positive note.
This podcast was made possible by the generous support of Bonnie Vozar of Chicago, Illinois. Spread the wisdom. Inspire Jewish individuals around the globe by supporting Momentum's podcasts. To sponsor, contact podcast@momentumunlimited.org. You're listening to a Momentum podcast. For unlimited inspiration, wisdom, and empowerment, visit momentumunlimited.org.